What is happening, everybody? James Hancock here, back to review episode 8 of the Orville. I'm sorry about the tardiness on this review, but earlier I was reviewing Thor Ragnarok, so check out that video if you were interested in Marvel flicks. But some interesting news between episode 7 and this week, if you are rooting for a season 2 of the Orville, apparently episode 7 was the highest rated episode since the switch to Thursday night. Seems like it's taken a couple weeks for the show to find its audience. If you remember, the first 2 episodes were on Sunday evenings where it had sports kind of feeding people straight into it. So it is cool to see that the audience is growing and that the show is finding its groove. I think it also helped that episode 7, I think, was the strongest episode of the season to date. I enjoyed tonight's episode, but tonight's episode was pretty much a simple survival tale with a lot of heart and some good character development. But episode 7 was just like a hand grenade into the world of social media silliness, and I really responded to that. That said, I thoroughly enjoyed tonight's episode because it featured 2 characters at the core of the drama that haven't really had a whole lot of screen time. That would be Isaac and Dr. Claire Finn. I love how the show is basically following the formula of Next Generation, of periodically giving different characters a chance to take center stage. And while Dr. Finn and Isaac have been a major part of the show up to this point, this was the first time where we got to really see them be the heroes of their own story. And while ostensibly this episode is all about traveling to an inhospitable region and trying to survive, it's basically an episode about parenting and which approaches or which techniques yield the best results and just what it means to be a family. All hell breaks loose when Isaac agrees to be the pilot for Claire Finn and her children, Ty and Marcus. They're basically going to some carnival world or amusement park world. And there's the classic sibling brotherly bickering and bullshitting and fighting just constantly between these 2 kids. I mean, I grew up in a large family with a ton of kids. I have tons of nieces and nephews. I am very accustomed to the trials and tribulations of sibling rivalries. I definitely have my fair share of emotional and physical scars after being on the receiving end of some good-natured older brother abuse. And like many parents, Claire Finn basically resorts to constantly shouting them down, making threats, most of which go, for the most part, unnoticed by these kids as they continue to fight over video games or name calling or whatever the case might be. But it gets them into trouble when their shuttle drifts toward a Class 2 spatial fold, basically a spatial anomaly with a strong gravitational pull. And as Isaac's trying to avoid it, one of the kids throws the video game, it hits the console, the ship steers straight into the anomaly, gets nearly ripped to shreds. They travel 1,000 light years as a result, and they end up having to basically crash land on a moon with atmosphere that is roughly equivalent to our own. But in the process, the ship gets torn in 2, so Claire Finn ends up in one place, and Isaac and Marcus and Ty end up in another. So with their mother out of the picture, she basically is taken captive by this guy who's living in total isolation because this is the planet that's been ravaged by war, the water's polluted, people are mutants. It's just a very inhospitable environment. And meanwhile, Isaac and these 2 boys have to search for Claire. And it's absolutely hysterical seeing how Isaac just is emotionally incapable of indulging in helicopter parenting or putting up with their BS. He gives them the cold facts and nothing but, because it's just in his nature. He's an artificial human being and he is incapable of expressing anger, but he's definitely capable of showing frustration, especially when they're bickering and screaming, distracts him from doing what's most important, looking after the ship or looking for Dr. Finn. During his first outing to try and find Dr. Finn, he basically tells the children, look, you are small and feeble and cannot keep up with me. And he hands them a stun gun and says, this will improve your chances for survival by 24%. The kids they're probably not used to being spoken to in such a blunt fashion. So the unintentional comedy I thought was absolutely delightful. And for anybody who has ever spent a lot of time around kids where you realize that your threats and your ultimatums are having no impact, they continue to fight over the same issue. Eventually, Isaac does what every sensible person should do. They just keep fighting over this one damn gaming console. So Isaac just takes it from their hands, throws it into the air, and blasts it out of the sky like a goddamn cowboy and says, the game is never to be spoken of again. I mean, I absolutely lost my mind when he did that, because if you've ever found yourself in a similar situation, probably the one thing preventing you from doing that is the fact that a mobile game of some kind usually is pretty expensive. I don't care if it's an iPhone or an actual gaming device. They're expensive toys, so you're not just going to throw it into the air and blast it out of the sky. But that would definitely send the message home This is not to be tolerated. And so I feel like a little tough love and a little benign neglect always goes a long way, especially with wild, unruly, hyperactive children. So while all this is going on, we get some nice stuff with the crew on the Orville. They're basically repairing the ship when they're listening to Barry Manilow and having a little bonding session about that. At one point, Malloy makes a funny joke about how a Class 2 anomaly, they refer to it as a glory hole, prompting Bortus to immediately start referring to it as a glory hole. So that stuff was fun, but it's just great to see the crew working together, trying to find their friends. As I was watching this, I just started to realize, like, this show's a comedy. It's almost like a sci-fi spoof, but it has so much heart. Sometimes big-time mainstream TV shows can be a little overly maudlin and sentimental, but there's something about the sincerity of the heart in the show that it just gets to me. Even little tiny dramatic beats with like Alara Katan or some of the other members of the crew, I'm absolutely in love with this cast of characters. And if they don't get a season 2, I'm going to be bitterly disappointed, because that means we only have 5 episodes left with these characters. So the episode ends in kind of predictable fashion. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a throwaway episode in that the episode does not tackle a big giant topic. I guess it is easy to disregard it a bit, but it is nice just to have a change of pace with a simple story that's different from the previous ones. But basically what ends up happening is that Ty gets sick from the water, and Isaac's looking after him, trying to find a way to keep him alive. Finn has to break out of captivity and come and save her son, but she doesn't have the tools with which to do so. And they basically get attacked by a small army of these mutant creatures. And it's cool because Marcus and Isaac team up to take on these creatures, and they're zapping them down with their stun guns. And so it is a nice little dramatic beat where you see Marcus is rising to this challenge, and the Orville finally finds him, saves the day, and all's well that ends well. And we learn that Dr. Finn's boys are absolutely in love with Isaac now and consider him a part of the family. They even ask him to swing by and visit Ty in the hospital as he's recovering. Isaac doesn't quite understand why he needs to do so, but he seems to genuinely appreciate the fact that her little crew has adopted him as one of their own. In any case, I enjoyed the episode. I perhaps was a little bit underwhelmed due to the fact that I'd just seen Thor Ragnarok in the theater, which is this crazy 2.5-hour cosmic space opera, like rock extravaganza, and so it's going to be tough to compete with something like that immediately thereafter. But I remain a devoted fan of the show, and I was pleased to see in the teaser for the next episode that the blue alien with whom Kelly hooked up and broke up her marriage a year prior, he makes a stunning return in episode 9. So I'll definitely be tuning in for that episode, but I really appreciate you watching this review. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'm always available on Twitter pretty much anytime, day or night, at Colbrex. So thank you so much for watching this review. Definitely go check out Thor Ragnarok this weekend. The movie's an absolute blast. And I'll be back at y'all Sunday night for my next review of Star Trek Discovery. So long.